Welcome to part two, all things real estate. Listen, if you missed out on last week, definitely go back and recap part one where we interviewed Katrina Robinson. We are so excited for all of the wealth of knowledge and information that she provided. But we literally had so much information that we had to break it into two parts. So please enjoy part two of my interview with Katrina Robinson.
I love that you gave the example of my mom's house. I was just talking to her the other day. I was like, you've had everybody and their mother to live here in some way, in some capacity. At some point in their life, someone has stayed at this home, right? And so because we've kept it in the family, even after she's gone, after I'm gone, or the next person, it can continue to live and generate money for whomever is here, or it can just continue to be property that's within the family, as an asset.
Yeah, and that's that I do believe is so important, is for understanding the concept behind family fortune, and making sure that our legacy is left for generation to generation to generation. I think that it is so important, just as it is with 60 and 70 and 50-year marriages and what that looks like. I think as our children and our grandchildren come up, the importance of understanding the hard work that Big Mama and Pawpaw put in to make these mortgage payments, to pay this mortgage off, and to maintain this home, not only for themselves and their children, but for the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. I think that begins to establish a strong foundation in our homes of the importance of making sure that when we make a commitment to something, we stand by that commitment, and the importance of what standing by that commitment looks like for our children to come up. And so it's just not from a financial perspective, but you are also instilling those morals and values in the younger generation of the importance of, because when you sign that contract, you are committing to this term of this loan. You're committing to the community that you're going to keep up the home. You're going to make sure that the landscaping and the curb appeal is good. These are commitments that you make when you sign your name on that dotted line. And I think that begins, and it also shows strength in money management and creditworthiness. And I think that that's something that is so important that we need to teach our children as a young age, so they are not claiming bankruptcy after they graduate from college before they even have a job. A lot of college students, as soon as they turn 18 or 19 years old, first year, they're getting 10, 20, 30 credit card offers in the mail immediately. And if they don't know the importance of creditworthiness and money management, they will sign up for these credit cards. Now the parents have to be on the hook for them, or they get themselves into all of this debt and they don't even have a job yet. Yeah. And so I think that this is an example, one way that we, Generation X can start to teach the younger generation to come up. And this is one way that we can show them how to do that.
I love that you said that. And Trina, you are all in our business from last year. We had a whole segment around financial foundations, and we talked about credit care and how critical it is to care for your credit. We're not always taught these things, right? We came up in generations where living paycheck to paycheck was the standard. As long as you were meeting enough to make your bills, then it was all
paycheck
good.
To Monday. We didn't even make it to Monday. We got paid on Friday. By Monday, it was over with. We had to give $20 to the next paycheck.
That's it, right? And it's so interesting when you think about it. It's just due to a lack of knowledge, right? We did not have the information that is so now plentiful to us. And that's a great segue into the comment you made around real estate as an investment, right? To be able to invest, you have to have good money management skills. Period, point blank, right? You cannot truly invest in real estate without cash funding to an extent. And when you talk about things like flipping homes and acquiring homes, eventually, as you mentioned, you can kind of cash fund yourself so that you don't even have to have loans. But a lot of people tend to feel like, how can I get there? I'm not making the money, or, I don't have this. And what I always encourage people, and I want to get your opinion on this as well, is it's not always about the money you make, but again, to your point, how you manage the money that you do make, right? Because there's people that maybe, make a different, a reasonable average amount of money, right? But still can own multiple properties because they've managed their money well. They have little to no debt, as you mentioned. and their credit score is good. And so because of that credit worthiness, as you mentioned, and people see that money management and the debt that they have is considered good debt, whether that's a home loan or, an investment in a car even, which I know one would argue either way.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, right, eventually then are positioning you to be able to acquire wealth. So when it comes down to this idea of, kicking off and starting your own investment pool and buying your own home, what are some of maybe three key things that you would think of that a person would need to kind of be prepared to kick that off, or start their own, journey in investing in a home?
Sure, absolutely. And so most individuals, great question, by the way. Most people have to obtain a loan. They're not privileged to just go pay cash. And so I'll speak from that perspective. Number one is you have to understand credit, and you have to understand how credit works. Okay. Credit works off of four different key points. One is mortgage loans, of course. And as far as scoring, let me start there. As far as scoring is concerned, as far as your FICO is concerned, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax, they look to see how many mortgages you have. They look to see how many installment loans that you have. Installment loans is term loans. So whether that is a student loan, whether it is a car loan, whether it is a personal loan, a term loan is a fixed amount that you pay over a certain term. And they look at the history of how many installment loans you have and your payment history in those installment loans, as far as, again, a scoring perspective. So if you have a mortgage, if you have an installment loan, and then if you have revolving credit are credit cards. Now, the way credit cards work, and a lot of people, and this is kind of venturing off into a totally different topic as far as credit is concerned. But the key thing to understand about revolving credit cards is not to go over a certain percentage on your credit cards. A lot of people think you can max it out and you can pay it off, or you can max it out. Maxing out your credit cards is the worst thing that you can absolutely ever do in life, is to max your credit cards out. It is important that you stay below 30% of what your credit limit is. So if I have a credit card that has an $1,000 credit limit, the moment you go over $301, your score takes a hit. Doesn't matter if you pay it off every month, you pay it on time, that does not matter. A lot of people also make the mistake of making your minimum payments on your credit cards. You should always pay more than what your minimum payment is. Why? Because your minimum payment is taking 80% of that minimum payment is going towards interest. It is not going principal balance, which means the balance on your credit cards stay up high if you're only making that minimum payment. And so anytime that you have a revolving credit card, it is important that you stay under 30% of what your credit limit is, and you either pay it off monthly, or you try to pay at least 30% more of what your minimum payment is each month. Okay. And then they take into consideration, from a scoring perspective, any derogatory credit. So if you have any collections, if you have charge-offs, if you have bankruptcies, a lot of people don't even know this. Child support goes on your credit. Child support will go on your credit. Any judgment that you may have can go on your credit. Any evictions that you may have, it can go on your credit. So it's super important that you understand how credit works. So understanding how credit works and trying to get the highest score possible is what's most important as it relates to being pre-approved for your mortgage loan. So getting your credit together. Now, DTI is debt to income ratio. It is important that you understand, and I say it like this, I try to live by the creed of under promise, over deliver, right? And so what that means from a mortgage perspective is to live below your means. If you make $50,000 a year gross, you can't live at a $50,000 a year gross lifestyle. Well, why do I say that? I make $50,000. You don't, because you have taxes to take into consideration. You have Social Security that you have to take into consideration. You have your regular rental or mortgage payment. You have daily expenses that you have to take into consideration. And that's how a lot of people get in trouble and they're unable to save, is because they say, and then as soon as they get a raise, they go out and they increase their expenses because you got a raise. That is not how you begin to save and you begin to be a good money manager. Now, let me give my quick testimony. I claimed bankruptcy twice before I was 30. Twice before I was 30. I had a foreclosure and I had a repossession. I had to go through hard lessons and I had to learn that with age should come maturity, but not always. Sometimes we don't begin to mature until tragedy hits. And it is important for me in this business and for anyone else to understand that we should not wait until tragedy hits to mature in certain areas. And so if you have these tools, use them now. Here's the flip side of that. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to do it as long as you learn from that. You have to learn these lessons when you go through these bad times. And so I said all of that to say is, even if you're got all of this debt now you need to get on a budget. Now you need to get on a plan where we can begin to attack that debt. And a lot of times that means a total 180 of how you're living. So that's no Uber Eats. That's eating noodles. That's drinking water. That is, you can't have those shoes because they were $200 shoes and now they on sale for $29.99. That's a deal. That's not when you were trying to get to a certain place in life. Those are not deals. That's just a sick way for society to keep you arrested into having a whole bunch of stuff that you just don't need. You just don't need. And if your hands are clenched with all of the old, you can never, ever, ever receive the new because they're clenched and they're closed. So if you want a new way of living, if you want a new perspective as it relates to being wealthy and to having a homeowner, you have to open your hands and let go of those things that you have held on so tightly to that you think that you need. You don't. You can't receive the new unless you open your hands. And so, number one, understanding how credit works. Number two, tackling your debt, living below your means so that you can get into a position where you are able to save. And then number three, understanding that those two concepts is a lifestyle. You cannot have good credit, work to get your credit good, work to save money, get what you want, and then go back to an old way of living. It is just like losing weight. You have to change your mind. You have to work out. You have to change how you eat. And then once you lose the weight and you tone up, you can't go back to eating cheeseburgers every day because guess why? You're going to go back to being unhealthy and overweight again. It is the same thing with mortgages and real estate. You're going to do all of this work, buy your home, and then you're going to go into foreclosure. And now you got to wait all over again. You got to start all over again. So those are the three things. So understanding credit, tackling your debt, and understanding that it is a lifestyle mentality change that you have to carry on for years and years.
Oh my goodness. We are getting so much information. Everything you just said, I was just sitting here thinking like you literally hit the key topics, right? When you talk about credit, your second thing was money management. And then obviously, as well as ensuring that it is a lifestyle change. You can't just live the way that you've been living and want change. We understand that, right? And I appreciate the fact that you also gave your personal testimony. Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of times people assume that those that are speaking on this topic have always had it together all the time. Right?
Not at all.
Absolutely, right. I grew up with a family that really we knew money management, but not for real. You know what I mean? And so I had to go through my own thing of trying to figure out, okay, credit cards are not good for you. I shouldn't be running up these credit cards. Let me step back. Let me figure this out. And it was through my college experience that I was able to learn good money management habits, because again, it just wasn't always afforded to me, and my family didn't always have the wealth and knowledge to understand understand what that meant, right? And so I think it really does come as a gift when you can hear someone speak to their testimony and then see where they are today. I would have never guessed that you went through that because you overcame it and started to just thrive, right? You have multiple businesses, you are successful in your own right. And so we see how, even though I love that you said this, it's not about having this perfect or this picture perfect life, right? It's okay to sometimes fall, but the key is to get up and don't fall again in that same area, right? You don't trip over the same pothole twice. You didn't seen it there. Keep walking. You know it's there now. If you trip over it again, you obviously ain't paying attention. You haven't learned your lesson. But as you said, the key is to make sure that you learned the lesson. I am so happy that you said that, because a lot of people do feel that way. How can I start this journey, right? And you gave us three very practical ways to be able to execute that. And it doesn't take a lot, right? One thing I always encourage people to understand as well, you know, to me, I am obviously not on social media for many reasons. I can, that's a whole other conversation in itself. But one thing I try to encourage is don't look at other people and what they have, right? So even though your initial investment property may look different from the next person, it doesn't discredit the fact that you own your home, right?
That is absolutely correct.
That is important. Someone could look on Facebook and say, oh my gosh, they have a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house, and I'm living in this 1-bedroom, 2-bath. It's okay. It's okay. You started where you could start, right? And it doesn't mean that you won't eventually get what you desire, but we all have to start somewhere. But where we start looks different for different people, and we just have to be okay in our own skin in that, right? So I appreciate you for sharing that, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so my last question here, Trina, this has been such a great conversation, just talking to you about everything that we addressed. For example, how do we start this idea of generational wealth, investment property, and then your advice to someone seeking their own home. What steps should they take to prepare? You gave us 3 key steps. But then I also want to just kind of close here and just ask, so Katrina, obviously with real estate, you've talked about a lot of benefits. You also, have told us that there can be generational wealth and investments that come with owning real estate. But what are some of the challenges? I don't think we hear a lot of people speak to that. So if you could just briefly tell us some of the challenges that you may have faced, or that some of your clients have faced in owning real estate.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll make this very quick. So from a personal perspective, homeowners just need to understand that they are responsible for the home. So you're responsible for real estate tax increases. You're responsible for any repairs, whether they are or minor. You're also responsible for your community as well, and being the lookout for your neighbors. And those are just some of the challenges that kind of come along with home ownership. Is just kind of the ups and downs of the market as well. But then just understanding that it truly is an investment. From an investment perspective, the number one challenge, of course, are your tenants. You have to make sure that you are properly screening your tenants, that you make sure that you're getting someone who's going to take care of your property as if it were their own. If not, then they'll put holes in the walls, and they won't treat it the way they would treat their own home. You also need to make sure that you get someone who may not have the best credit, but you trust enough to take a chance on, to make sure that they're making rental payments on time, because you're on the hook for that mortgage, and that those rental payments are offsetting the amount of your personal money that you are putting in to those mortgage payments. So those are just some of and again, being responsible for those repairs that may come at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. You making sure that your tenants are taken care of, staying on top of your certifications and license, the city and the villages as well. So those are some of the challenges that you can have. Definitely more benefits than challenges, but they are definitely some.
No, I'm happy you brought that up, because again, I definitely see, to your point, as we've discussed in such great detail, and thank you again so much. The knowledge you shared today was just mind-blowing. I actually learned a lot of things as well today, so I thank you for sharing. But there are also, to your point, some challenges that people tend to forget. You have to keep the home up as well, right? Absolutely. Especially if you talk about getting that return on your investment, or the home appreciating in value, that requires upkeep. And I think a lot of times we really don't process that. As you mentioned as well, owning, right, tenants. I have a best friend right now that owns a beautiful condo in the heart of DC, and she moved to LA for a great opportunity. And unfortunately, she worked with an agent to try to get tenants that she thought were good, and she's having extreme issues with these
Yes.
tenants. They're not taking care of the property accurately. There's so many issues, and so it's more of a headache for her to even rent it than it was for her to just kind of keep it and pay, make the payments, right? So there
Absolutely.
are definitely steps to be taken and a lot of due diligence that has to be done to make sure that you take care of the property and that you're making the right selection when it comes to those that are inhabiting the property. So thank you so much for that. Katrina, this was so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Please understand that you will be back on the platform. I just want to say that right now.
Thank you so much for asking me. It was great. It was so much fun.
Yes, you will definitely be back for something. I don't know what it is, but you will be back for something. We will have you back to speak on something because just the wealth of knowledge that you have around this topic and just financial literacy in general. I could hear that as you were speaking to that. As the Minister of Education, and obviously I'm huge on financial foundations and literacy. We do these midweek moments. And so whatever we have something, I definitely will make sure you come back. But before we go, I do want to give you the space and time to share your contact and your platforms with those that are watching in case someone wants to contact you and get more information about what we discussed today.
Absolutely. So you can, first of all, you can email me at KatrinaMRobinson@yahoo.com. You can also contact me verbally at 708-275-2661. You can also follow me on Twitter at the Chicago Mortgage Lady _KR. And you can also follow me on Facebook, I'm sorry, at Trina Robinson. Those are my social media tags. So you can follow me on any one for more information, do free consultations, and then if you choose to move forward, I can take your application. I mean, we can make sure that we get you pre-approved for your home first, and then we can refer you out to a real estate agent to go and find that dream home if you don't have one. So again, Katrina M. Robinson at yahoo.com or 708-275-2661. Who that? Minister Damney, sorry guys.
Okay.
Minister Damney, thank you so much for having me. It was just an amazing conversation. And anytime you need anything, feel free to reach out.
Yes, thank you so much, Trina. And thank you all for watching. I'm just so excited again. Listen, you all, this is the first week, and we are kicking off the month of financial literacy this way. Just understand that there is going to be so much more to come, so much more information, so much more wealth of knowledge. And so we thank you so much, Trina, for participating and for kicking us off. So you all have a great week, and we'll see you next time, next week, same time at noon. Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.